Welcome back to IELTS IQ. Today I have a great lesson for you that's all about introductions. So I hope you're ready. Let's begin. Okay, so time and time again, I see students struggling with giving a good introduction. Today, I'm going to share with you my perfect introduction. Really, an introduction has to do two things, right? First, it needs to introduce the topic, okay? Number two, what should it do? Well, uses a subordinate clause to add information, right? We're thinking about words such as which is, who is, because, or since, okay? So ideally, the perfect introduction needs to be one sentence, maybe two, with extra information. We're going to get to a sample very quickly, just so you can see how easy it is, okay? Here is a task card below me that comes up all the time in IELTS Speaking. Describe a person who has been influential in your life, okay? Really, when we look at task cards, we only need to look at the title, okay? We only need the title to create our perfect introduction. I've already got this person in my mind. That's going to be my mother, right? So maybe you have the idea already of somebody, but you don't know how to put it together. Well, let's follow this simple method, okay? For this topic, I'd like to talk about my mother, who's always supported me throughout my life. There it is. It's so basic, yet so powerful. I've introduced my speech. My mother will be the topic of my talk, right? I've used who has contracted, who has always supported me throughout my life. Now the examiner who is listening right at the beginning knows who I'm going to talk about, okay? It's really that simple. There's one extra point we need to make here, and that is confidence, okay? Even a basic introduction spoken confidently is going to be amazing, okay? Really, you want to spend the majority of your time in the body of your speech. Remember, the introduction just introduces your topic, okay? So whatever it is, make sure it's confident. I would say that's probably the most important thing. If I took my introduction here and spoke it in a weak way, you can see the difference. For this topic, I'd like to talk about my mother, who has always supported me through my life. You can see such a different impact versus, well, for this topic, I'd like to talk about my mother, who's always supported me throughout my life, right? So some smile in there, some tones. Confidence is key. All right, let's move on and look at some introductions from my students, okay? Up first, we have Trung. So Trung had a task card, which you can see below. Describe a part of your culture that you're interested in. We can see on the screen his initial, his first introduction. Okay, with this topic, the first culture that comes to my mind is Tet holiday. kind of weak, right? It's not the best introduction. I wouldn't say it's terrible, but it's not a good intro. Reworking that with our two-step method, well, the first thing that comes to mind is Tet holiday, which is a vital part of our cultural heritage. Wow, now that is just a step up in introductions. You can see I've put vital on the screen. In case you didn't know, it means very important. Let's have a look at what we've done. We've got our subordinate clause, okay? Look at his initial introduction. Tet holiday is at the end of his sentence. I've put it kind of in the first clause. The first thing that comes to mind is Tet holiday. It's so clear for the examiner who is listening. Cultural heritage, lovely collocation. Trung knows this collocation. We studied it together, yet he failed to use it in his part 2. Here, he's got it right in the introduction, in that extra clause to give information. Comes to mind, I've also changed what he wrote, comes to my mind. Comes to mind is a more natural way to speak the phrase and slightly more idiomatic, which you should be thinking about using some idioms if you are looking to score on these higher bands. Though, that said, it isn't necessary, okay? Much nicer introduction. All right, let's have a look at another intro from another student. This time, Thuy An. She had the same part 2 card, okay? Here is her introduction. Okay, so today I want to talk about one of my favorite local cultures, which I found very interesting and fascinating, which is street vending, and I've known about it since I was in primary school. That's a lot, okay? It's a little bit too much for your introduction, in my opinion, right? It's a bit messy. It doesn't flow very nicely. And after reworking it, we have something like this. Okay, so today I want to talk about street vending, which is one of my favorite things about Vietnam and a big part of our cultural identity. Just like cultural heritage, Thuy An knows this phrase. We studied it together, though she also failed to use it in her part 2. Let's have a look at how we reworked this. Street vending, I've put it again right at the top of the intro. So it's very clear for that examiner. We don't want to confuse him. It's very clear, or her, what she's going to talk about. We have which is, so our connecting word for the subordinate clause. You can see her first intro is a bit messy. I've used that second connector and a big part of our cultural identity. It flows more nicely like this. She used, let's have a look. She used which I found very interesting, and which is, so she's got a repeat of words right there. It doesn't flow very nicely. So you can see, just using that two-step method, introduce your topic right at the start, add a sentence or clause supporting or giving some information, and your introduction will sound brilliant. Doesn't matter if you're aiming for a 5 or an 8, okay? It's a great way to introduce your talk. On the screen, we have 5 titles from different task cards, and I want you to go through and practice using that two-step method at giving your introduction for each. I guess we can do the first 2 together, right? Describe a person you know who is from a different culture. So for this topic, I'm going to talk about a dear family friend called Doyle, Who comes from Germany? Look at that intro. It's quite basic, yet it's perfect, okay? Dear family friend, very nice collocation. It's very simple, called Doyle, I have his name, and that supporting clause, who comes from Germany, okay? The examiner knows who I'm talking about and where this person comes from. Now I'm going to spend most of my talk, my 2 minutes, with the body of that task card. So reasons or why I like him, things like that, what we do together, where I met him, whatever is on the task card, right? Okay, so let's have a look at the next one. Describe a beautiful object. Art, painting, or an item. Okay, so I'd love to tell you about the Rolex Day Date, a truly elegant watch that in many ways defines the entire watch industry. Alright, a little bit nicer, more advanced here, still following that two-step method, even though we're using 2 sentences now instead of 1 sentence. My first sentence introduces the item, Rolex Day Date. The next sentence, I'm adding that extra information. Truly elegant watch, lovely collocation, defines the entire watch industry. So I'm showing the examiner now I've got some information and knowledge on this item, okay? It's really that simple. That's going to bring this class to an end. Please practice giving your introduction for these 5 topics and drop them in the comments below. I would love to read some of your great introductions. All right, I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.